Blindspot Season 2, Episode 7, Resolve 11 Myths. Love this episode. Of course, we got Rich.com, who's like the best comedy villain ever. So it was fun getting him in this episode. We had a really good, just typical villain, I guess, just a crazy super assassin. So he was awesome. He was beating everybody up with his martial arts, so that's always fun to see, CQC type stuff. But it was a fun episode. It was really funny, and then they go through some things, and I called it. I was like, if it wasn't Reed, it was definitely the dude that was at his apartment. I was wrong about the knife thing, but I called it that it was probably him instead of Reed. It was like maybe he stole the knife, but then, like I said, that didn't make a lot of sense as to why Reed would say it broke a long time ago. But that was good. I was glad to see that, and I don't know where it's gonna go. I'm happy that it wasn't Reed, and I still don't know. I would assume that he'd just give them up at some point, because eventually they're going to come to him and it's going to be like, huh. Which I'm surprised they didn't do in this episode. It's like, okay. So we go through, because they mentioned they found the compartment. It's like, alright, we have this whole wall of compartments. You just go like this, and it's like, there's literally one solid space. Now, I wasn't paying attention during that initial episode when Reed was actually in the guy's house. But I would assume that the way he had it set up was either, it was both based on year, but it could have also been alphabetical. I know for sure it was year. It had to have at least been year based on the way it was set up. That would just be random to have that many tapes and just be looking around like, where was all this stuff? It had to have at least been by year. So it may not have been by name, but I think that's a big element. Like, okay, that's something that they could, tie back to things. Like they didn't mention it, so they probably won't, but I was like, there's literally one tape missing out of that entire thing, and maybe they thought it was something simple, like, oh, he may have gotten rid of it, or something random like that. Maybe the killer took it. That's probably what they're thinking. But it was very interesting. I was like, I don't know where this is going to go now, because that seems like something that, even though they may have been doing their simple thing, like covering bases, that seems like something they may have hidden. Like, alright, so he didn't kind of out himself because of this. Maybe if we bring this up, he'll give himself up. So that might actually come up again in the next episode. But going through all that stuff, and Zapata at the end, she still decided to help Reed out. And I was thinking at the end, I was like, man, because I figured it wasn't going to be him. I'm like, there's going to be something here where it's actually not Reed. I didn't think it would, actually be the knife, because he was so adamant that it wasn't him. I'm like, what would be the point in hiding it after she mentioned like, oh, it's in lockup now, so you're gonna tell me the truth? And he's like, there's nothing to tell. Once it got to that point, I'm like, he couldn't have done it. Like, you would have to be like out of your mind to have that sort of disconnect and say it wasn't me. I mean, he could have actually gone crazy. I mean, considering everything that was happening, that probably wouldn't have been too hard of a stretch to actually have that as the storyline. But that would also mean that they would either have to do an amazing cover-up, or Reed would have to, be gone from the series. So I figured at that point, like, alright, he's definitely telling the truth. He didn't do it. And, I was thinking when Zapata went in there, I was like, I wish you would just open this thing up right here and just take a quick look and be like, huh, this is that guy. He's screwed, and just drop it right down and get out of there. Probably not that big of a deal, because she mentioned, like, it's not going to be the first time evidence has disappeared or whatever. So it probably won't come back to bite her in the butt or anything. But now there's still the idea that it could. She technically did steal that evidence, which, if the cops don't have it, they now no longer have anything to technically prosecute against. And if they do decide to go after Reed, Zapata's going to have to be like, hey, here's that knife that went missing. I took it. And then she's screwed. So they're just, I honestly don't see this working out 100%. And also, Reed was pretty hardcore in this episode when he's like, you don't place bets anymore, but you still love to take risks. So I was like, holy crap, that was a pretty great line. It was pretty messed up, but I thought that was a great line when he said that to her. And I was like, holy crap, that was harsh but amazing. So I really don't see this working out 100% now that we know exactly who did it, because not only is that Reed's former friend, but now they have this stuff with Zapata where, like he mentioned in this episode, I didn't do anything, but technically you have. I mean, like I mentioned before, he technically had the B&E. That doesn't matter. That's not murder. That's not. Um, it's a very specific thing, but basically stealing evidence. They have the name for everything. So it's not. I guess that would be tampering with evidence if she stole it, but it's not tampering with evidence, or she is tampering with evidence. Stealing items from evidence. I guess technically the tape itself kind of counted as evidence a little bit. Because it would have sent them towards Reed initially, I guess. But I just don't see this working out perfectly. Like somehow it's all gonna come together, and it's gonna be like, no, something bad's gonna happen, and I would assume, considering Reed did a little B&E, it's gonna be against Zapata because they're gonna need that evidence if he decides to prosecute him, which he might not. He might decide, hey, he went through this crazy thing, and he still felt like he clearly, when he was talking to the ADA, he's like, you let him go free because you didn't want to push this case. And I think he got what he deserved, which, if he was actually a suspect, would have been a terrible thing to say. But, I don't know, maybe he'll just be like, hey, that dude sucked, and I wanted him to go to prison, but now he's dead. That's what he deserved. Especially knowing, we technically don't know. I would assume that the video he saw with himself on it was something really bad of himself, but we really don't know because they haven't talked about it yet if what he said was true. And maybe it was videos of him and this coach, and maybe he did get upstairs really fast right after it happened, and he did watch him die. It's like, well, I didn't kill him. He had like 4 or 5 stab wounds. What was I gonna do? So maybe he did get up there in time to watch him choke to death. Maybe that'll actually get revealed in the next episode, or after everything's all said and done, and what he decides to do, and what he agrees to do after he learns the truth from Zapata. Maybe that'll come out, and it's just like, you know what? It was me on that tape, and when I heard the noise, I ran right upstairs, and I saw him dying, and I thought, why should I? I didn't do it, and I know I couldn't have helped him, even if I called the police, considering the way he was stabbed, it seemed like it was kind of like it right up in the heart and stuff. So there were some pretty important things, specifically the heart. So there's some important stuff there, and he died choking on his own blood. So that might come out that Reed actually did watch him die, which that may or may not. I'm pretty sure that somewhere in the laws of the United States, that's something. So. I don't know, but I was excited to see, that was the truth. It's revealed that it was his buddy, and now he's been gone in the wind for a couple episodes. So we'll see what happens with that. But that was a great reveal. We know for a fact that Reed is innocent, aside from a little B&E, no biggie. But now Zapata has had she blackmailed the other dude, with the wife, and now she's stolen evidence and stuff like that. It just seems really bad. That's way worse than what he did. So I'm hoping everything plays out. I don't think she'll, of course, if they do charge her or anything, she'd get serious prison time. That wouldn't be some little stuff. She'd have to be off of the series because she'd be in prison. So something's going to work out, but I don't know. It won't be perfect. That's pretty obvious. So, waiting to see how all that plays out. Of course, going into the main story for this episode, we have Rich.com coming back into play. He freaks out. He wants to get arrested because he's got this super, the ultimate assassin coming after him. The Acadian, as the assassin was known. And I thought that was awesome. I was like, alright. Rich is just silly. He talks about how his boyfriend was killed and stuff like that, which, of course, we find out was fake. So that was interesting. I was like, crap, he's going to escape. But it had a great ending with that, with Patterson and stuff. But going through the whole episode, it was pretty fun watching them have to deal with this person who's a super assassin. He kills this random dude in his house, takes the badge, kills the 2 guards while he's trying to, get to the normal locker room where Rich was at. Ends up, I mean, that's just simple sleight of hand. He switched his badge with the janitor. But he's going through, he makes a chemical bomb and stuff, and just the way he was fighting, when he fought against Reed and Zapata, he completely destroyed them. And the scene where he was running, I'm trying to think, with the tactical vest, that was probably the coolest thing I think he did in the whole episode, because he's just running right at her. And she's doing the normal TV thing where instead of just pointing straight down or anything, she's just like, I'm just going to keep firing even though I literally wear one of those like every other day. So, of course, she just kept shooting right at the vest instead of shooting him anywhere in his legs. So he knocks her down, he does some flips, does some kicks, destroys both of them, and then he infects Zapata with a neurotoxin. And so they try to trick him and stuff like that. Doesn't end up working, and Weller gets beat up. But it turns out that Jane having this crazy dream sequence in the beginning of the episode actually had some relevance, which I figured it did anyway, but it actually came in a literal sense. I thought it was going to be more of a mental thing, like, okay, she's having this dream with this fake life where she gets to be with her brother and she gets to be with Weller. And then we have Jane who's having these visions, and then Remy comes in. And so we have this thing where it's like, the current version of Jane and then the former version of her old life comes into play, and it's like, this doesn't belong to you, it belongs to me. And when that happened, I was like, holy crap, this is like the beginning of the complete deterioration of Jane. Like, it's going to be the former life. Like, that life is about to start taking over. And I think that's true, because she starts to kind of flash back to the dream that she had. And I thought it was cool. And they kind of have her basically recreate all of the memories. And now Jane is taking the place. Instead of being the one getting beat up, she's the one doing the beating up. And so she beats the Acadian. And then, of course, Weller comes in at the last second to stop the knife. And he ends up, killing the guy by accident. But they showed that, and I was like, oh man, she retained those memories from her former self. Like, she's very well trained, but there's still that mental block. Obviously, she doesn't remember everything, so she kind of brought back those skills from her old self after having like a battle with her former self as well. So maybe it's nothing, but it's TV. Typically everything means something when we get to see it. So this might be the deterioration of Jane and kind of the reformation of Remy, or Alice was her actual name. So I don't know. That might be it. I could easily be wrong. I'm clearly just speculating, but that seemed like a really big possibility to me, that dream sequence signified like the true start of Jane kind of disappearing. And who knows if they're going to blend together, because it was drug based. It's not like just normal amnesia where it's like, oh, I don't remember anything, and then once you remember it, you kind of have both memories where it's like, man, I remember my whole life now, but I still remember that part of me that didn't know anyone or something like that. But this is drug based, so is it going to be like that where she just snaps back and poof, she's 100% the former person, but she remembers all of her actions? Or will it literally be like two different people blending together where she'll sometimes have former urges, but she'll still be more Jane, because I guess technically that's the current version of her, and the other version was kind of wiped away outside of the little glimpses and memories. So with it being drug based, it's just hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. So I don't exactly know how it's going to play out, but I thought that was very interesting. Like, this could be the start of something really bad for her mentally, like what she's starting to remember, and the former part of her life coming back to take over and kind of push Jane out, which might not be the worst thing based on the ending of this episode, because Roman finds out from whoever their spy is inside the FBI that Jane's allegiance is to the FBI. So he's going to be pissed. That's going to be really, really bad for them in this next episode, but very excited for that. Of course, we have Rich and his partner. They both get locked up in this episode because Patterson didn't end up going to the infirmary. She actually was tracking them and didn't trust Rich whatsoever, so they just tracked the cell phone and they bust them both. So that was a great scene, and I love the fact that they showed the scene where Patterson like freaked out when she was trying to punch the dude in the last episode, where he was like, he was like pissing her off really bad, and she was trying to punch him. So I was glad they showed that. I'm glad she got him back for that in the last season. So it was really cool. They got busted, and now they're in jail. So I'm sure something will happen. They'll probably bust out, if not this season, probably next season. They're gonna keep that guy in there because he's freaking hilarious. So that was really good. They bunch of random references. They talked about Stranger Things, which is a really great show. It can like kind of spoil a little thing in there. So if you haven't seen that, I do recommend it. But it was funny. He was funny as usual. And then them getting busted, I actually thought was cool. I thought it was cool that they made it out. But the fact that they got busted, I thought was even cooler because he does always end up escaping. So, or at least the last two times, I guess he escaped. Well, actually, I guess the last episode was the only time he really escaped. But I feel like there was something else there. He's escaped and he's just silly. He's always doing something that where it's like they never get it 100%. But this time it was like, nope, we busted him. All he wanted to do was get, technically he still kind of won because they killed the super assassin, but they got him. It was like no big deal. He's alive, so I'm sure he'll be fine. Eventually he'll get over that, but his normal thing, talking about the sexual tension, is like, you guys seem so distant now, and it's like, who's Nas and all this other stuff. So funny as usual, but definitely an enjoyable episode. Great cliffhanger with Roman freaking out. Typical Roman freaking out, especially even before he found that out. When the guy's like, oh, it must mean something bad. And the first thing he does is flip out. I was like, you think my sister's untrustworthy? He's like, I'm just saying, if the guy contacted us, that's like protocol for something's off. Doesn't mean your sister. I was just, the whole world, man. And he's just like, sister, and he was about to destroy that dude. So, normal Roman, and we'll see how that plays out in this next episode. I'm very excited for it, but of course I want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and of course I do want to know what you guys think is going to happen in this next episode, specifically with Roman. As much as I feel like it's obvious that Shepard, once she finds out, if she finds out, I mean, he might not tell her. I'm assuming he will, because this guy, I don't know. I mean, it's Roman. He probably freaked that guy out. He's like, you know what? He said he'll deal with it. I'm not ever going to touch that or mention it again. But I assume that he will tell Shepard. And if not, he'll at least try to do it himself. So it's kind of one of those two things. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he kind of went rogue and tried to do it on his own. Like, hey, this is your last chance before I have to tell Shepard before you truly ruin everything. But I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens with that. But I want to know your predictions for it. And, of course, what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below. Let me know. And thanks for watching.